questions right now. All right, so chapter 14, you go on here, all right? Look at chapter 14. All right, this is great because this was going to be your mystery verse, which will define what I'm going to talk about in Acts chapter 1. All right? Look at this, all right? It's all coming together, so you're like, what is he talking about, okay? He's talking about 144,000 people, and, Jews. All right, now look. It says in verse 3, it says, and they sang a renewed song, not a new song, a renewed song, before the throne, before the 4 living creatures and the elders. No one was able to learn that song except the 144,000 who were redeemed from the earth. They are those who are not defiled with women, for they are maidens, okay? They are those following the Lamb wherever he leads them on. They were redeemed from among men, being first fruits to Elohim and to the Lamb. This is the first fruits offering, okay, to the Lamb. All right? Now, this is interesting because this is not the only time the first fruits of the Lamb, all right, was offered. In Acts chapter 1, you will see, all right, well, first of all, Matthew 27, you'll see that those who rose again, all right, they were dead. They were from, men of old, all right, and it says, verse 1, or chapter 1 in verse of the book of Acts, all right, chapter 1, verse 3, to whom he also presented himself alive after his suffering by many infallible proofs, being seen by them for 40 days, speaking concerning the reign of Elohim. So he stayed there and appeared to all of the believers for 40 days during the counting of the Omer. During the counting of the Omer, okay? Now these saints, where did they go? Well, they were there. They were hanging out, all right? So to speak. They were there. They were just waiting. Waiting for what? Where did they have to go? Well, it goes on, it says, in meeting with them, he commanded them not to leave Jerusalem, but to wait for the promise of the Father, which you have heard from me, because Yochanan truly immersed in water, but you shall be immersed in the set-apart Spirit not many days from now. Blah, blah, blah. Keep moving on, okay? We're going to talk about that during Shavuot, okay? But it goes on and says this in verse 9. And having said this, while they were looking on, he was taken up, and a cloud hid him from their sight. The word clouds is also a Hebrew idiom, which means angels, not just a literal cloud, but angels took him to heaven. All right, so now, are you with me? It says, he was taken up, and a cloud hid him from their sight. Now, all the saints that had died before that, he emptied paradise to take them where? To the third heaven, as a first fruits offering of the Lord. All right, so question, and I asked this question in the churches, and then once they learn the answer, they either A, give me the deer caught in the headlight look, like I never knew this, or B, this is fantastic, I want more, okay? So, was Yeshua the only one that descended into heaven that day? No! He had a vast throng of people that he had to take up to heaven to present before the mercy seat as a first fruits offering, because Shavuot was coming. Okay? Fascinating stuff here. So now paradise, paradusio, is totally empty now. The only thing now that's there at the heart of the earth is torment. Alright? Remember, the rich man lifted his eyes and seeing himself in torment, being in agony in the fire, said, come over here, Lazarus, and dip your finger and cool my tongue off with just one drop of water. That poor guy, he hadn't had one drop of water yet. All right, so Lazarus. Now can you think about the thief on the cross? He died, the one that was good, the one that became a believer. He died, so this is a really cool place, and he had to leave. Because Yeshua liberated it. He said, now where are we going? I just got in here. I mean, think about it, all right? Add some humor to this. So let the Word of God be fun. All right? So the thief on the cross went to third heaven with Yeshua. All right? Think about this. All right? This is great stuff. All right? So how many people? Well, there are actual theologians who have said that there were about 144,000 during this time that rose into heaven with Yeshua at that time. That would have been the first of the first fruits that went up to the Lord, okay, to be presented before the Lord as a first fruits offering to Yahweh. Now, if this is not fascinating stuff, okay? And then what happened? 144,000 Jewish male virgins. And then what did they do? They reaped another harvest of first fruits. And they stood before the throne holding palm branches. Well, what are they doing? Well, they were celebrating Shavuot, the Feast of First Fruits, and Sukkot all in one. All right? So this is like really deep here, okay? Now, I love this because it says, then they went back to Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives, which is near Jerusalem, a Sabbath day journey, and when they came in, they went up into the upper room where they were staying. Not talking about an upper room that was separate from the temple. They went into the temple, into an upper room, into the temple that they rented out. And it says they were all in one place. They were in the temple when the Holy Spirit fell, because the temple, another word for the temple, another title for a temple was the house. All right? They were all in the house, 120 believers, waiting on the Ruach HaKodesh. They're like, yeah, Yeshua said that the Ruach HaKodesh was coming, but what's that? Well, you know, how's he coming? We know who he is, but how's he going to come? And, I mean, you know, wow. So, you know, I told the senior pastor today we were having a resurrection service, and then, you know, and I had forgotten to tell him that because I wanted to invite him. He goes, well, that's great, you know, and I love him because he's just funny. He goes, now remember, leave your tongues of fire and everything else to a dull minimum. Here, a minimum roar, all right? So, I said, well, thank you. I said, we're not going to have that much. Maybe some radiation from the resurrection, but that's about it. All right? So, but if you look at this stuff, it is so fascinating that all of this was fulfilled, that Yeshua was here the 40th day, which was 10 days before the Feast of Shavuot. They stayed 10 days in the temple, fasting and praying, day and night, singing, and waiting for the Ruach HaKodesh. Now, if this doesn't make your faith come alive, I don't know what is. You know, this is fascinating. Okay, now it goes on. It says, and when the day of the festival of Shavuot had come, they were all with one mind in one place. Now, we'll talk about Shavuot at another time. But the Feast of First Fruits was the day that we presented our first fruits offering before Yahweh. And then, now, I had one family that took it literally. They had crops, and they actually picked the first fruit of their crops, and they brought it to the congregation. You know, they were military, so they moved away about 2 years ago. But I loved it. Because, man, I got, like, squash and this and that and the other, and they would lay it at the altar. Wow. And it'd be for the community. Well, we could all pick from it and eat it, and, you know, I'm like, wow. As long as there's no Brussels sprouts in there, I'm good. Yesterday I went to get dinner and, you know, and decided I'd be, you know, healthy and responsible. So I got me some Brussels sprouts, brought it home. And after I ate the second one, I realized why I did not like Brussels sprouts. So I'm going to tell L.A. Marzulli Saturday, hey, you know what? Or Friday, I want to tell him, look, I have considerable amount of proof that there are aliens that exist on the earth. They must have come in the life form of Brussels sprouts, or they planted the Brussels sprouts here on the earth because they're nasty. All right. So I said, so the only way I'll eat them now is if they're boiled half to death, sprinkled in 2 pounds of salt, and with cheese sauce all over. All right. So there you go. But think about this. All right. The first fruits. This is first fruits. This evening. When you go home, think about it. This is the time when Yeshua rose from the dead. This is the time. Okay? And you know what? Since my brother Joe is not here, all right, I'll tell you this, which I've already done this in my show. I've disagreed with him to his face before. All right? That's why we're brothers. Right? We do have to differentiate. Okay? We do differentiate. Why? Here's the reason why. Yes, we're one in Messiah. There is no Jew nor Gentile. Now, hear me out before you go. Okay? But there are those, okay, that call themselves believers but are not. Okay? There are the sheep and there are the goats. There's the wheat and the tares. The tares and the goats have been placed in the middle of us. Okay? The reason why the Torah was written in the first place was to separate the profane from the holy. This book was written to separate the profane from the holy. We're supposed to be different as believers. We're not to be of the world. Right? But we've allowed the world to enter into our congregations, and we start looking like the world instead of looking like the Messiah. It's very important that we see this, that we do differentiate. Yeshua differentiates. Those, he said, on my left hand, depart from me, for I never knew you. He didn't say, come all in, we're kumbaya, we're all one. We're all one in the arms of... No, If you're not a child of God, you're a child of the devil, according to what the Word of God says. I'll give you the book of James. I love just saying what the Word says, because I don't have to say it, and I'm not liable. All right? The book of James says, if you're a friend of the world, you're an enemy of God.
Amen.
Is there a differentiation there? Yeah. You have to differentiate. So there might be a little wonderful discussion on the radio station this week about differentiation. Okay? Now, on the part about being Jew and Gentile, he is right. We're one new man in Messiah, being built together, all in unity. But if our lifestyle, if our speech is not matching our lifestyle, then we have to really question and pray and ask the Lord. It says, examine yourself to see whether you're in the faith or not. We must examine ourselves. That's biblical. But if we allow the world to infiltrate our faith, then we really need to start looking and say, do not allow the world to pollute our garments. You may not lose your salvation, but you will lose your inheritance and your rewards. The inheritance is very clear, you know? So remember that. Don't be disqualified. Don't allow the enemy to disqualify you or those people around you. You work out your faith and your own salvation with fear and trembling.